Welcome again to the Thursday conversation. Today, I'm super stoked to have two of my great friends, two of my best friends in the world. Those are Sean Purcell and Corey Christiansen. Those are two of the best guitarists I know. These guys are amazing jazz players. They are amazing rock players. They are amazing players and amazing musicians. If you don't know any of these guys, you should, and you will tonight. So we have Corey is the guitar professor at Utah State University, and he has authored over 70 books on guitar stuff. So that's pretty crazy. We'll talk about it later. And he has a new album that just came out with a Spanish title, La Próxima, which is the next one. And then Sean Purcell was the Airman of Note, the Army band guitarist for many years, and now he's on the Navy band, the Commodores. He's been there for several years too. He's an amazing guitarist. He was my guitar teacher actually at Middle Tennessee State University. So let's welcome Sean and Corey. And now that guys should be in now, I hope. So
I feel in.
Let's see. We'll see in a minute. Yeah, you're in.
In for years.
How are you guys doing?
Great, Socrates.
Good. Thanks.
Well, thanks for doing this, guys. And it's always a pleasure, just talking to you and sharing stuff with you. Corey, you have a big following in Dominican Republic, as you know, and hopefully we'll have some questions from people coming in later.
Yes.
So what's up with you these days? What's happening with the pandemic and everything?
Well, not much. I mean, that's not true actually. Yeah, I mean, not much playing. I don't know, Sean. What's happening in the military?
We have not done, well, basically I've done one gig since March. We went to Sao Paulo, Brazil in March and did a bunch of gigs.
Before they shut down?
And it basically, everything was shutting down while we were there.
Oh.
So when we came back, it was on lockdown. So yeah, I did a July 4th gig. That's it.
Wow.
July 4th. How
4th.
was that? How did that happen? I mean, were you using masks and everything?
Yeah, that was just like a private gig. So someone just had a 4th of July backyard barbecue or whatever. And yeah, we were all masked up, and man, it was I sweat a lot. I don't know how well I played, but I sure sweat.
I did one last week, Sean, in Utah. They said it's going to be warm, but we have a tent, and the tent was like, it was like a jacket size. It was like big enough for one person. So the gig was like playing on the surface of the sun. It was so ridiculous. We should have been wearing like those thermal tinfoil outfits.
Yeah, things are pretty. Darden has done a couple of live stream things, but some folks are doing some outdoor gigs, but there's really nothing has come back thus far.
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of crazy because, and I mean, on the one hand, there's two things I'm kind of grateful for. I mean, I do have the job at the university, kind of like you, Sox, and Sean, you have the job with the
military and George Mason. Like we're eternally grateful.
So it's cool. And then I got into the online learning space like back in 2008 or 2009. I built I've got 2 or 3 companies that I help build. That are doing that kind of stuff. So, but it was crazy. After the president gave his speech on a Wednesday night, I think in March, literally every gig I had until July 2021 canceled. I mean, within the next day, I think there was one other gig that canceled like a week later, but literally every gig that I had for, touring or recording or just literally everything just went. My email, it sounded like a pinball machine when I woke up. It was just like ding, 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 and every one of those is dollar signs, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh,
Going away.
Yeah, we're canceled. I don't know what the Navy's doing as far as performances throughout the year, but I know our tour has already been canceled. I don't know if we're going to be able to perform publicly through the end of the year. You know, Gen Conference, we keep kind of hearing rumblings from the Gen Conference. So I think everything's just, yeah.
Well, you're in the Navy, Sean. They should just put you on a boat and like get you COVID tested and then put you on a boat and just like sell you out into the Atlantic Ocean and just.
There's probably a lot of people that would like to do that to me anyways, just personally.
Go on a boat and go to the Atlantic Ocean.
Guys, you know what? I am not recording this. Maybe I should. Actually, let me do it from now.
Did you sign an agreement for a recording?
I did not. Maybe I should send you a waiver or something.
I just cashed my check though, so we're good.
Yeah. Sox told me my check's in the mail.
Yeah, especially.
Yeah.
So Sean Brennan is saying you were a high school buddy of his.
Oh yeah, Sean Brennan.
Yeah, you danced together. So can you see it on Facebook, guys? I don't know. He says he can't see it.
That he can't see it?
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, it's supposed to be going on my.
Oh yeah, here we are.
On my music page.
I don't see. I see my stepfather is watching. I don't see Sean Brennan yet. I see myself.
So you can actually see it.
Yeah, I'm watching it right now.
Okay.
This is a good show so far. I'm digging it.
You're digging it?
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're good. So you can actually see it, and that's me with a delay now. What the heck?
Darden said that she can see it.
Okay. Cool. Let me see. How do I hear? Now we're fine. You know, for me, I lost a few gigs too, of course, but for me, it's the big band. And I had 2 festivals that I was so excited about. And I had 1 gig at UNI in Iowa. I was super excited about that. And of course, nothing happened. It was like, oops. Like Corey said, woo!
Yeah. It's like the great equalizer. No, yeah, everybody's just, I feel like in the same situation everywhere.
Yeah, you know, it's hard. But well, at least we have jobs. You know, we have a steady job that we can actually, rely on.
But sometimes I'm like, yeah, I guess we do have jobs. I don't know. It hasn't, it kind of hasn't felt like it too much lately, but.
Well, you know, at least we have time to practice and do things at home.
Yeah, this has been actually, I've probably practiced more in the last 4 months than I have like in the last 4 or 5 years.
Wow.
I know Corey went out though. Corey went somewhere and I saw a freaking picture with a bear.
Yeah.
Tell me about it. I wanted to ask you about it.
I haven't done that yet.
Yeah. Well, it was kind of crazy. You know, I mean, a lot of people, I mean, like my close friends know that, you know, I don't know if I'm an avid outdoorsman, but I'm an outdoorsman, I guess. So with 2 weeks or 3 weeks notice, a friend of mine and I decided to go into very remote Alaska, like 40 or 50 miles away from the nearest cabin and do some fishing because, you know, COVID had shut down all the lodges and all of the fishing guides weren't working. And so we just did a total DIY fishing trip to Alaska. And we went in with 2 bags each that basically had fishing gear and a tent and an electric fence to keep the grizzly bears out of our So I did. So that was a 10-day excursion, and we just went out and lived in the tundra of Alaska for a week.
But you had a bear coming to you, like really close to you.
Oh,
I
yeah.
saw the picture.
You must have seen some of the pictures or the videos.
I think I saw both.
Yeah. It's you know, it's interesting. I've been around, you know, a lot of animals, you know, with being outdoors, and that's why I live in Utah, to be honest, is for the mountains. But I've never been around grizzlies before, and there we you know, it wasn't like we got into a ton of them, but I think we ended up running into maybe about 14 grizzlies while we were there, and I think maybe 25 or 30 feet was about as close as they got to us, but that's pretty close for a bear.
Very close.
Yeah, you know, when you figure it's like a 8-foot, 9-foot bear, it could cover that 25 or 30 feet pretty fast.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
Great. I got along great with the bears.
I thought about you actually, because we went to Yellowstone like last week or so.
Yeah.
And I told my wife about you. I said, you know what? Corey saw a bear really close to him. I don't want to do that.
You know what? You know, the bears are kind of cool. I mean, we ran into 2 mamas that had cubs, and that was a little like you got to be a little careful around the moms, right? But they were cool. They were fine. I mean, one of the encounters, we kind of spooked her, so it could have gone really, really bad, I think. But it didn't go that way, obviously.
Yeah, you're still here, so.
Yeah, nice to hear. But you know, I'm not a bear expert at all, but what I did learn out there is there's just a couple of different kinds of bears, grizzly bears. There's like the cub bears that are really curious about who you are, and they're like, "Hey, what's up? This is new. We've never seen you before," you know. And you want them to be like, "No, stay with your mom. Don't come over here. Don't be curious," because basically the cubs ask their mom like, "Hey, can we go play with that?" And mom's like, "Yeah, but I'll have to kill it, you know, if you do." And so you want them to stay there. So then there's cub bears, and then there's mama bears who are very protective, but chill, but protective. And then there's like teenage personality bear that just like wants to, you know, is like cool hanging out, like, "Hey, what's up, man? You're fishing? I'm fishing. Cool." You know, like they're totally great. And then there's like drunk uncle bear. There's like the drunk uncle that shows up at the family reunion, you know, it's like, "Oh," you know, and that could go either way. It could be very like cute and funny, or, you know, kind of, or it could go bad. And then there's just a mean bear. And we only ran into one that I would categorize as mean bear, but plenty of drunk uncle bears, that's for sure.
Well, man, I tell you, I saw that picture and I freaked out looking at the picture. I was like, "Oh my God, that's way too close."
Yeah, I have to say that's probably the most remote thing I've done, you know, and it certainly is, you know, it ties into my, you know, like, I mean, really my big thing other than music is just doing things in the outdoors. And so, you know, I'm kind of the opposite of Sean. Like when COVID hit, like I didn't practice at all. Like I played the guitar a little bit in the mornings or whatever, you know, just to be like, "Woo." But like I didn't get anything really done. And I don't know, I should be more embarrassed about this, but like I don't think I played guitar for real for like 6 weeks. You know,
Wow.
like I didn't practice other than I'd be like, "Oh, da, 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 da." You know, I just play some scales or whatever. But I just wasn't into it for a while, and I kind of did it on purpose, actually. You know, like just.
And I couldn't. I was like full speed ahead. Like I'm just gonna shed now.
I mean, that's
Like,
awesome.
forget everybody.
Yeah. See, I don't think there's a right way or a wrong way to do it. You know, I mean, maybe per person, but I just felt like I really needed some time off, you know, and I saw this as an opportunity to take some time off. And so I took like 6 weeks off, and then I came back, and it's just been awesome because I've had all these new ideas, and I've, you know, been building some new curriculum, and you know, it's, you know, I was heavily involved with online stuff, so it's not like I didn't play at all, but I wasn't, you know, shedding as much as I was before, which wasn't probably enough anyway. But like, I just kind of went into this space where I was like, yeah, I'm just not going to worry about music for a little while. And now that I'm back, I'm just really glad I took the time off, to be honest.
Yeah.
It feels awesome. And I'm just, you know, I still suck, but like, you know, like I feel like I've got some new ideas and, you know, and some things that I've kind of been able to like some not guitar habits, but like musical habits, maybe some musical leanings that I've been able to kind of back out of maybe a little bit, which has been really, really cool.
That's pretty cool. You know, I am with John on this actually. We worked a lot on the studio you know, we moved to a new house. So building the studio took about a year to put everything together, and we spent a lot of time on that. We bought new gear, of course. Yeah. And my wife, of course, hated it, but
stimulus check had to go somewhere.
Yeah.
We had to, you know, support the economy. So we did.
Stoke the economy, yes.
Yes.
I know Sean said something about that too on pedals on his Facebook, and I commented on that.
Oh yeah, got to keep buying those pedals, you know. Got to help those guys out.
Yeah. Well, you know, I've been practicing a lot. I've been writing music here, and I was supposed to have my sabbatical actually this semester. But with all the situation and everything, they called me like 2 weeks ago, and officially I'm saying it now. I am not getting my sabbatical this semester. I'm going back to teaching.
Wow. Yeah, what's Corey, what are you doing? So I was telling Socrates that Mason were hoping for, you know, a hybrid of in-person and online. But I'm not really sure like what the lessons situation is going to be like. Are you guys?
Well, I am on sabbatical for a year.
Oh,
nice.
I know. I know. It was like.
Of course, they're going to rub it in my face. Cool. Thank you.
I'm going to call the Navy and see if I can work that out.
I don't know. I might not have a job when I get back, but they are giving me my sabbatical. So Sean, to be honest, like I literally don't know, because like they said, do you want to know? Do you want to get all the department emails? I was like, not really.
No.
And so I'm just kind of focusing on my sabbatical stuff, you know, and which some of it was supposed to be touring, which
right.
But already it's you know, my sabbatical has been a lot of fun because I rewrote some of the proposal to just investigate a lot of like online opportunities, you know. And you know, it's kind of funny. I mean, some of the people that are familiar with my music have been like, hey, you need to do some live streams. I'm like, I'm not going to do that because at least not in the traditional sense, and at least not right now, because I don't know. I think the live streaming thing has been really cool, but I'm not sure that it has given more value to our art.
Right.
To be honest,
plus it's been such a we were kind of saying like online fatigue, where so many people, it was just this glut of online live streaming performances and stuff that I don't know if people are getting kind of over it already, or
well, and you know, I think some of it is like most musicians just in general, and I know that what I'm going to say there, you could say, no, that's not true in some cases, and it's not, but like most musicians are really good human beings, you know, like, and so whether they're getting paid or not, they're like, hey, I'm going to put this out so people will enjoy it. Or maybe we're just narcissists and we need people to say, wow, you're so awesome. You know, I don't know. It might be both. But what I worry about is that, you know, what I've seen be, you know, in the music business the last 25 years is just a real devaluation of art, you know, just art in general. And while I do think it's really important that just people as a society have access to art, I also feel like that society should do something to take care of artists, you know, better than we do right now. you know, when we continue to give things away, it doesn't help our cause.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah, and that even comes from
I'm not sure.
not all the students, but even students, I find nowadays, just to get them to purchase a track that's 99 cents can be difficult. So I feel like some of that comes from we're kind of eating our own from within, where we don't even want to pay for art as musicians, the up and coming musicians. And I don't want to be, you know, generalize all of the younger musicians, but it's more and more difficult to get that to even happen.
Well, you know, Sean, I think you could generalize and just say younger people, like
Sure. Yeah.
just, you know, younger people, because, you know, the younger musicians are probably maybe the best ones, you know,
Right.
even though they might not be doing as much as you know, as we did when we came up, because I think you and I, Sean, are pretty close to the same, you know, age and Sox. I think, you know, we're all about the same age. So of course we all had, like, you know, cassette tapes that we had, like, you know, duped, which is kind of the same thing, right? Piracy. I mean, like, I have to remind myself when I get in my soapbox, sometimes I'm like, yeah, I did a little pirating myself, you know. Probably shouldn't say that because I know Socrates is recording this, but but not to the extent, you know.
Sure.
And a lot of times, you know, it was so awesome when the CD technology came about, because you couldn't really dupe that at the beginning. Like, you had to that.
Well, you know, I duped stuff, but sometimes it was just a matter of not being able to find, you know, if I found like a Doug Rainey CD, for instance, no one else in the entire city of Pittsburgh was going to find that was the only CD of Doug Rainey's that existed in my city.
Accessible.
So if somebody wanted that, they needed to record that just to have it.
And you were in Pittsburgh. I was in Logan, Utah, which is like, you know, like even less of you know, of a cultural mecca with consumer.
Right.
And so, yeah, it was really hard to get things. But I got to say, man, when I did get a record, I cherished it.
Sure.
You know, in a different way than I even do now. But, you know, and then you see this thing that's going around right now, like, you know, the CEO of Spotify lecturing musicians that they've got to put out more content.
What the
Like,
heck?
yeah, I know. I mean, like, really, it's like, okay, first of all, that's a parasite telling its host to eat more food.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like a tapeworm saying, "Oh, okay, hey you, eat more bundt cake." You know, like, we're liking bundt cake down here. We're not working for it, but, like, we like it, so eat more bundt cake. And so you know, it's so with the live, anyway, to come full circle with the live streaming thing, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just one more thing
Yeah.
that, like, devalues what we do. And so there's two things. I think we have to, you know, really try to educate people about why it's important that a society has artists in the first place, right? And then, you know, second of all, to help that, you know, the artists to, you know, value what they do, and you know, and value themselves. And I don't know. I think it's an interesting, you know, it's an interesting thing to think about. But also, you got to think about other ways that you can monetize your career. You know,
Sure.
because it's not the same. You know, I did my first record, you know, that was released, like, internationally, and back in that day, the record label paid for everything. They gave you an advance. You had marketing money. They paid for radio. They did all this stuff, and it's like, those days are gone. But I don't bemoan that fact, because I'm like, hey, you know, I've done maybe, I don't know, 6 or 7 records the same way Sean has, and stuff like that, where it's like, you know, we kind of do it ourselves, and then you find a record label to distribute it, and yeah, they don't pay for everything, but I actually end up making more money doing my own thing than I from a record label.
I get it. You know, for me, I was lucky to, I mean, my label actually on the latest album, they paid for a lot of the advertising and
wow, that's great.
radio. They paid for that. So I was lucky with that. And they did a great job with that. So
who's that contact, Socrates? What's that?
Can you put that in the comments, please?
Yeah.
But, you know, I was lucky with that. I mean, I was really, it was a great thing to put it out with them. Now, I agree with what you said, because, you know, as artists, we are not, I think that the younger generation don't understand what's happening, and they don't appreciate it the same we do, or we did, or we, you know, I remember, Sean, I played this gig at Raz's in Nashville.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, we had this gig, it was Matt Long and I.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And we were getting 100 apiece. You played that gig too, actually. I saw you there.
Yeah.
We played this gig, and it was, I think it was 100 apiece for about a year. And then they called me back to do the same thing, like 2 years later, and they were saying 25 apiece.
Well, man, Socrates, like and I'm sure this has happened to all of us, but Darden and I, it was in Nashville, and it might have been that place, but it was another restaurant that we were booking just like little duo, trio gigs, and it was a steady gig. Yeah, we were making like 100, 125 bucks or whatever, fine. And man, every time we did the gig, there'd be musicians from Nashville, and you just hear them talking to the manager saying, like, whatever you're paying this group, we'll bring in like a 5-piece group for the same amount of money or less money. So I think that just the artists themselves, before society is really going to value us, right, we need other artists, you know, and I appreciate, like, you know, younger players, older players, like, they want to get out and play, and they want an avenue to express their art. But yeah, especially when we were in Nashville, it seemed like there were always people coming to your gig, not really to support you or not really to be at the hang, but to try to get their own gig for whatever price, you know, to do it for whatever prices they could do it for to get their band in there. And, you know, I can't really say that I completely fault them, because
I completely fault them. That's scab work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that there are folks out there that are just trying to get their foot in the door or whatever, and they maybe aren't around the business, so they don't really know. Like, I grew up, most of my dad's side of the family were in the business, so it's like I grew up doing society work, and I grew up doing show work and the music union, and knowing that these were, you know, ill thought of things to show up and try to steal someone's gig or to do gigs for less money. But, you know, some people don't have that background, and so they just think, hey, I'm going to come to your gig and try to get my own gig.
So what I would say to those people is, great, go find a different venue.
Sure.
Go start something. Don't take something from somebody else, because you just, and I say this, you know, it's you see it sometimes with younger players that want to get a foot in the door, but also people that like have another profession, but then, you know, I have this job, but I just want to play, and so I don't need the gig, but I'd like to do the gig so I can undercut the real, you know, like the real music.
Yeah.
And we've even had people, like, since I have the Navy gig and the teaching gig, folks will call with low pay and just assume, like, well, you have a gig, so you don't really need the money. Let's just go out and do this gig for
$5. I would call Quincy Jones. I'd be like, I'd like you to produce my next record, and like you made so much money on Thriller that, like, maybe I don't need to pay you.
Sure.
That's so stupid.
Yeah, right.
But some people, you know, they don't like that word, but, like, it's stupid. Sure. I mean, because here's the thing, like, the reason that you have the Navy gig and the reason that you have the university gig is because you can actually play some music, right? So
absolutely, yeah.
And so it's like, yeah. So when you hire me, you're actually getting somebody who has experience and who knows how to play.
Yep.
You don't know the world you don't know any other musicians anything, because you've worked hard.
Right. Sure.
Successful. Oh,
sure.
Man. That just hearing that makes my blood boil.
Right.
I get, you know, Go ahead, John. Sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say it's difficult too, cause like Corey, your dad, probably same rough age as my dad, and I remember my dad talking about in the '70s, restaurants you'd sign a year contract with a restaurant, just a restaurant, and you'd play 5 nights a week, and the gig was like $100, and you played 5 nights a week, and you could sub it out. That same restaurant 10, 15 years later, you could maybe get in the door once a month, and the gig paid less than the 5 night a weeker just 2 decades before. So I think the whole live business has just been on that trajectory. And I don't know if it's part of the musician's fault or if it's just society, but it just seems to be the way it's moving. More artists, I don't know.
I think, this has been happening for years. Even Alfredo, by the way, is on the Facebook thing. He says that thing happens in Dominican Republic all the time. And it does. I remember it happening when I was there, even 20 years ago or more.
Not cool.
Yeah.
Not cool. And you try to,
Let me just say this. Can you imagine trying to do this to the trucking industry?
I did, and it didn't work. It didn't work out.
Yeah. That's the kind of thing where it's like you end up swimming with the fishes.
Sure.
There's so many industries that you can't do that. And that's,
well, I think the union used to be like in Pittsburgh, the union was, at one point stronger. And so they did have people that would come around and police, musicians that were in the union that were hiring non-union cats and paying them under union wages and stuff like that. But that seemed to really PO the local musicians. So it was like the musicians fighting against that policing, whether they were trying to do it in a good, positive way or whether they had other ulterior motives. They did have that at one point. To some extent, not like the truckers, I'm sure, but
actually killing people, I think. So, the musicians, we just haven't gotten that courageous. We would do that.
But there was one that you mentioned to me. I am not going to mention names, but the one that showed up to your gig with a gun.
Oh, yes, that's true. I did play a gig with a guy that was wearing a gun. Yeah. But I live out west. Everybody's wearing guns. No, I'm just kidding. Not everybody. But that stuff doesn't freak me out too much. At least I knew he had the gun. I'd rather, no. But what a strange thing to be kind of. Needless to say, we played whatever changes he wanted to play on any of the tunes.
Whatever tempo he wanted.
Yeah.
You want to do the Bill Evans changes? Solid. Yeah. Whatever you say.
Oh, Corey, and both of you have a new album out. So Sean has Symmetricity, which is a great album.
Thanks,
and you have the Latin album. Tell me about it. Tell us about it, about anything about the album.
The Latin album? Well, I'm just glad that I spelled the Spanish title right.
You did.
Because it would have been horrible if I would have named it The Last One.
And I think that with my spelling, I think symmetricity is not an actual word, so there was no fear of misspelling it or using it incorrectly, or it was just.
You were innovating inside the album jacket and outside the album jacket.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the Afro-Cuban thing, I've had so many great experiences playing with, Brazilian, Afro-Cuban, and African musicians, in my, throughout my career. And I wanted to do an album that was primarily based on, some music from Cuba, which is really West African music, right? And I just learned a lot. So when I taught at Indiana, I worked with Michael Spiro, who is really one of the leading scholars and performers of Afro-Cuban music. And we've always had a real strong musical connection. And so I just told him, I said, hey, I know that Afro-Cuban music generally doesn't even involve the guitar. It's trace, you know, like Afro-Cuban music isn't even guitar, it's piano and horns. And I was like, I want to do something a little different where it's just like guitar trio and percussion. And of course he was like, oh, that's not an Afro-Cuban record, but he was totally down. So for like 18 months, he just gave me like a heavy listening diet. He's like, check out these recordings and check out this. And so I just started studying Afro-Cuban rhythms and like learning how cowbell parts went and how, the bongo drums went and the congas and timbales and like trying to translate some of that and learning how to write tunes that go with clave, even though, like where the melody makes sense with clave. And, and here's the kind of the awesome thing is that, so I went in deep for like 18 months. Right. And then I did a record. And what I can tell you is that now I know a little bit about Cuban music, right? Because people sometimes get so arrogant about those things like, oh, I'll study for 6 months and, now I'm a jazz player. And it's like, no, that's not really what happened. You might be a musician who plays a little bit of jazz, but you're probably not a jazz musician. And so what really that record was is me trying to put my stuff on top of some real masters, and trying to doing it in a way that didn't insult their music, but really from a selfish standpoint, it was just me trying to learn from these guys. I just hired some guys to kick my butt and hopefully that I would learn some stuff. But I got to tell you a great story that puts almost everything in perspective. I was playing some stuff and doing some teaching in Africa, and I was working with a really great young drummer, and we wanted to play this one too. They wanted to play a standard, and I said, "Oh, cool, but let's do it as a bembe, right?" And he's like, the drummer, and he's African. He goes, "I don't know what a bembe is," and I was like, how can you not know what a bembe is? And so there wasn't a bass player in the group, so I was actually playing bass with these guys, and that was, probably not a great situation anyway for them. But anyway, I was like, oh, well, a bembe, it's kind of like a 6/8 or a 12/8, and I'm like, here's like a bembe bass line. I'm like, and I laid down what I thought was this, and he's like, oh, and like, all the clave was right, like all the accents were right, like everything was perfect. And so I stopped and I go, yeah, that's a bembe, like that's perfect. Like, what do you call that? And he goes, we call that playing the drums. and I was like, that is so awesome. We make up all these names, for stuff. I mean, so we can catalog it, right? And so that we can so that we can streamline the teaching, and so that we can reference it fast with, spoken language. But none of that crap matters. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, what matters is the sound, right? And the tradition of that music has always been, when I go, boom, boom, you go, like, that's pretty cool. I mean, it was a really great lesson for me to learn as a fairly seasoned, I guess, teacher and performer. But it was like, yeah, the names don't really matter. It's awesome at a presentation of a paper or something at Gen, but like, and it's good to, to talk about it, I guess. But at the end of the day, the thing that matters the most is the sound, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's really what I was trying to do, is just with that whole album, was just put myself in a situation where I was having to deal with authentic sounds and and just kind of test myself. Like, what do I do when I have these guys doing their thing really, really well, you know? And it has been an awesome experience.
You know, me coming from Dominican Republic, I can relate to everything you said. Because sometimes, you know, I went to school, I studied, I kind of know things. Yeah. And then you talk to these guys. I mean, a lot of them don't even read music or anything. But you play something for them, and it's like, oh yeah, this, whatever. And then it's like, oh, cool. And you have no idea what they did, but it worked.
Yeah. And I understand there are certain things that do have to be a certain way to honor the tradition and for things to be done right, because those systems are in place and still exist, and those relationships of the instruments exist because it has worked, right? And it stood the test of time because there was something authentic about it. And so I'm not saying that it's bad to be able to catalog those things and talk about them in an academic way. But at the end of the day, the only thing that really matters on the bandstand is when I go, you go, right?
Yep.
But, you know, it was a real thrill to play with those guys, you know, and do that record. So we did we played, and they checked out my music. And, you know, Michael Spyro was like, he's one of my favorite people in the world. He like really set me straight on how to write melodies with certain claves. And so I wrote a couple of bembes, and I wrote, some things that were kind of more like Mozambique and a really cha. I did a cha-cha and a Cuban bolero. And, and it was all original music that had to be in that song. So in a way, I kind of pushed myself, and I'm the better for it. You know, it's my favorite gig if I'm the least experienced person on the gig, right? I mean, it's like, that's the best. And what I've tried to do my whole career is just like always hire people when I can, like when I'm on the road, like, well, yeah, it's my gig, but I should be like the least experienced person because, you know, I want to play with people that destroy me every night. Like, and sometimes it's hard for that. But just, you know, like just lay it down so that I'm forced to grow. Like, I just love that situation.
You know, for me, it's every time I play with my band, it's the same thing. I'm conducting the band or whatever, and when I hear those guys playing, it's like, holy crap. I mean, well, you've seen the band, so it's like, every time for me, it's like, whoa.
Oh, yeah.
So I think I missed my count, and then it's like, oh shit, I need to go back to one somewhere. Sean, what about you? What about your album?
Well, Symmetricity was it was my first album actually as a leader. So for a long time, I just
that's awesome.
Sad to say that I just kind of had that feeling of like, why does the world need another jazz guitar record? What am I going to offer that hasn't been offered, 10,000 times already? And so I was starting to write more, and I've always written quite a bit, but I just kind of got into this thing where I was writing a couple tunes, and I was like, man, I really like these couple tunes. Like, I'm digging this. And then I'm like, I'm going to write, I was like doing some camps, and I'm like, I'm going to write some more stuff that we can play. And with each tune, not that the tunes were that great or anything, but I was just like, man, I really feel like I'm writing like a body that could go onto a record. And so I just made the decision that, it's finally time to put my foot in the water and put something out. And, everything that's on there has been, of course, done a zillion times, but I was just ready with the material that I was working on. We were playing with some really great players in town, and then Stockton Helbing, who I'm sure both of you guys know, really great drummer that's done actually both the Darden's record and my record on Armored, was really helpful in just kind of fleshing out what we were doing. So yeah, it was just like one of these things where I was like, man, I'm just finally ready to kind of put my toes in the in the waters and just see what happens. And so now I'm like, as soon as I did it, it's like riding the roller coaster when you're like afraid, and I'm not going to ride this roller coaster, and then you ride it and you're like, oh man, I want to get on like the scarier roller coaster. So the beginning of the pandemic was me like wishful thinking again. I'll probably have to sell some of the pedals, but I was like, man, I'm going to write another record's worth of material, or more than another record's worth of material. And I wrote, like, I'm like, man, I wish I would have written this stuff for the other record because I like this even more. And I'm like, but now I just need money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it was really kind of born out of
Hey,
a
Sean,
feeling like I was just ready to do it.
Sean, just call up some professors and have them do the record for free because they got good jobs.
I'll try that. I will try that. But yeah, man, it's like I'm ready. And like what you guys were talking about with the labels, it was great on Armored because Stockton is very hands off. He doesn't really, there's nothing is paid for. We have to pay for everything ourselves. But I've been on some records, as I'm sure both of you have, where some of my maybe least favorite projects that I've been a part of, like a label is very handsy with what is going on. Hands-on with, okay, how many solos, the length of the tunes, which tunes get on the record, which tunes get cut. And so with the label thing, I mean, I'm kind of sort of cool with paying for everything myself and just putting it out on a label that doesn't deal with any distribution or any advertising or anything, because we had total control, for better or worse, over length of tunes, which tunes, the order of the tunes, who soloed on it, who played on the record. So that was really great after maybe having some experiences that weren't so great as a sideman, seeing that process happen, which happens very rarely. I don't want to say that there were labels that were really bad. It's just it was nice for the first one at least to have complete control, for better or worse, over what we put out.
Well, I mean, it's a great record, man. I mean, you put a great album out.
Thanks, Socrates.
I remember when we put it out, I listened to it right away on Apple Music, and then bought it right away from you, But I loved the album from the beginning, so it's a good product.
Thank you. So yeah, so now ready for the next one. So I got some overdrive pedals that I'll sell or something.
And the Ivan.
Rare overdrive. I need like a Klon or something to sell for the next one.
Well, for me, we decided not to sell instruments anymore if we don't have to.
I see that.
So, no, and this is only a portion of it. Liam has a bunch in his room too. So we decided not to, as a family, we decided not to do that, because the only 2 times I sold instruments, I regretted it.
Yeah. I've regretted, I can't really think of a piece of equipment, no matter how terrible it was, that I don't kind of look back and think, man, I wish I had that.
Yeah.
Like everything. In fact, the pink guitar I was showing you guys.
Yeah.
So I
show it.
Oh yeah. So this thing.
A lot of memories, man.
Ended up, so the story went that I had like an old RG50 in high school, and it was this hot pink, and I couldn't even remember what I did with it. I just remembered I had this hot pink. I was like super into Steve Vai. I was like getting all the whammy tricks together and all that. I had all that stuff together, and I must have sold it to a high school friend. So I get on Facebook one day and I see this guitar in my friend's hands, and I'm like, that's what I did with that pink guitar. So I texted the guy and said, hey man, within reason, whatever you want, I'll pay you to get the guitar back. And he was like, this is really only my only good electric right now, so I'll pass. And I was like, shit. So I kind of looked around, and then finally Ibanez reissued that particular guitar, and I just told Darden, I'm like, this is like the most frivolous waste of money, but I have to have a Road Flare Red RG550. I'll never play it. No one will ever see it. It's a total waste of our retirement and our future, but there it is. But yeah, the guy wouldn't sell it. And he's a great friend of mine. He didn't want to sell the guitar, and I was like, that's my guitar, man. Give it back.
That's funny. It's kind of funny. I might be a little bit the opposite. Like, while you guys were talking, I'm thinking if there's ever anything I've sold that I've actually regretted. I don't know. Maybe not. I just don't get too hung up on it. Yeah. And really, like right now, I'm kind of going through a phase where I'm like, I just want to get, like, I don't want to keep stuff around. You know, I just like, you know, I got good telly, I got a good hollow body, I got a good Martin, and I got a good Dobro. Like, I don't need anything else.
I need the Dobro.
Well, and it's not a Dobro. I kind of like it's just a resonator, but you know.
Okay. Well, for me, I don't know, man. I really like to have the instruments here. Some of them I don't use anymore, not often. Like the Gem I showed you, I never play it now. I played it every day before, but now it's like I'm playing the Strandbergs all the time now. But you know, it's the only time I sold. Well, 2 times I sold guitars. The second one I sold was the BC Rich Beach, the
Oh yeah,
original one, a blue one, beautiful one. One of the expensive ones that I got for $300 when I bought it, and they were at the time I think almost 2,000 when I bought it for 300. I guess it was super hot, but it was in Dominican Republic, so somebody got it here and took it there, and I bought it. So the thing is, I sold it to a friend of mine. He sold it to another friend of ours, and the last time I talked to him about it, because I know who has it, I told him, "Can you sell it back to me?" And he said, "No." He never plays it. He told me, "I have it on my wall. I bought another one of the same, the cheap ones, so I play that one in concert. Yours is part of the rock history, whatever, in the DR. So I have it there all the time." It's like, really? Just sell it to me. I can put it in my wall.
Oh yeah, I had when I toured with the Ringling Brothers Circus back in the '90s, right out of college, and I got this deal with Mesa Boogie, and I had like the Triaxis MIDI preamp, and 2 112s, and oh man, it was glorious. And I sold it because I'm thinking like I'm not going to show up to like a trio gig with like my flight case and my 112s and this MIDI rack thing, and so I sold it. But yeah, it was one of those things where I would probably never use it, but I wish it was in my closet somewhere just so I could pull it out, because it was just such a great rig.
And you guys have a lot of cool stuff too, because I know Corey got me in contact with the Positive Grid people, and they have pretty cool stuff too. But you have cool guitars, cool new guitars, and then the Benedetto things for you, both of you guys.
Well, he got his already. I had to order. I had to put like fretboard markers and stuff on that because I'm lame, so I had to get it custom. So I'm still waiting. I'm supposed to have it at the end of this month. So
okay.
That's awesome. Well, mine has fret markers also.
Oh, it does?
Yeah, you have to have them to teach. You're going to teach online, man. You got to have the dots.
Mine are LEDs though, I think.
You just did leaves, I think. Is that what they're doing for yours?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got like a custom color, and I'm like, man, do you guys make anything with the fretboard markers? Because what I'm going to end up doing is drawing them on there with like a silver Sharpie. And I would hate to destroy this, $5,000 or $6,000 guitar with a Sharpie.
So which one do you have coming?
It's going to be, I don't know what they're calling it, but it's like basically the Pat Martino body and neck. So it's basically a Pat Martino with some other color and other schematic kind of things.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I ordered it in January, and I'm just kind of like, yeah, I'm dying to get it. But it doesn't have the 15s. I ordered it with 8s actually. No. It'll have 11. It'll have like normal person strings on it, 11s.
Not like 14 or something.
Yeah, because the one I played at Gen, you were at Gen, I played that one, and it was great. It felt amazing, but it had like 16s or something, like the high E and the B, and I was like, I just can't, like, the next day, like, my arm was really just bothering me from that.
That's the one they sent me, was the one it's been there.
It was an incredible guitar, but like the strings, I was just like, I felt like I ran a marathon.
The one I wanted was, I told Howard, Paul, that, as the CEO of Benedetto, I said, look, that guitar you've been taking to shows for like the last 3 or 4 years, I'm like, that's the one I want. He's like, oh, we can make one just like I said. That's the
one. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's the one they sent me. You know?
Okay.
Yeah, I think Dan Wilson just got one as well. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
a great man. That body.
kill it.
I mean, the strings were heavy, but as soon as I played that, I was like, man, this is like unbelievably comfortable. It was the most comfortable body and neck that I had played. So hopefully, the one I get will have. Hopefully, they don't do anything with the neck back or the shape or anything.
That Benedetto is, I mean, Benedetto is one of the most consistent company, maybe the most consistent company on the planet. Like
Yeah, it was great.
everything is just. Like,
Yeah, and it sounded great. Like the
Armin,
yeah, it was just like, you know, Wayne Wilkinson, a good friend of mine, took me down to the booth, and I played that axe, and I was like, I gotta have that guitar,
that's awesome.
but with more girly man strings.
You know, for me, I play. I mean, for my hands, I play tens on these ones, and then nines, and my AS200, the Ibanez, has 11s. So I am wimpy. That's the thickest gauge I have is 11.
Yeah, the older I get, the thinner I keep going down.
I heard Allsworth played eights at some point.
Yeah, I heard Billy Gibbons played eights. I heard Jim Hall towards the end of his life was playing like nines.
Wow.
Just because, you know, it's like the hands just don't do what the hands used to do. I mean, I check out guys like I just got hip to Tom Quayle, the British guy that's like left hand, like unbelievable, like just unreal. And I think, man, like with the strings I have, I'm just not, you know, I'd really need to kind of thin out a little bit, I think, to even, and shed like about 1,000 hours. But, you know, the string, like my setup just doesn't like, my guitar just doesn't do that. Yeah. It didn't come with those kind of chops.
So Alfredo says, I honestly regret selling my wah to Corey.
Oh, it wasn't that good.
And they say big hugs from Dominican Republic.
Hug back.
Javier says that actually. So Sean Brennan is watching us all the time too. So guys, if you have any questions for Sean or Corey, please go ahead and shoot your questions. What else did I have? So Corey, do you have a Dumble at home?
Well, I've got that. Yeah, I mean, I've got an overdrive special that it's there's kind of an interesting story behind that amp, but yeah, it's basically, I mean, that's basically what it is. It just wasn't built by Alexander Dumble. Nobody knows who built it. Okay. And I bought it from Brad Jetter, who does Jetter pedals, and it's the amp that. So the story goes, he had somebody's real Dumble, and then he had mine, which is a counterfeit. Which I guess when you open them up, I guess it was copied. Whoever did it copied it like down to the brand of wire. Like insane. And but yeah, his GS 124 pedal, that's his like Dumble pedal, was designed after the amplifier that I own. So
okay.
And it's just an insane amplifier. It's just amazing. It sounds great, but what's even more uncanny about it is that like you can't tell that it's on when it's on. For a tube amp, that's kind of rare, right? Mm-hmm. I've had engineers in the studio say, "Hey, you need to go flip your standby switch," and I'm like, "Oh no, it's on." It's on. Yeah, and, you know, and in a controlled environment where it's, you know, things are that
right.
You know, they're that quiet. You know, for somebody to be like, "Could you go flip your standby switch?" And it's like, no. But it's a great amp. And then I've got a basically whatever that amp is, that was the Marshall 22 watt Plexi reissue kind of amp. And I run a Fuchs 12 or a Dr. Z212 with that. But I'm selling the Dr. Z212 if either of you guys want to buy it.
You're gonna regret it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna regret that sale.
I won't. See, you guys will benefit from me selling this cabinet. It's actually a really great cabinet, but I don't really use it. And then I have kind of
we might talk about it.
Yeah. Once you sell it to me, you can't get it back though.
That's yeah, it's totally cool. I'll build another one.
Put it up on my wall.
There's what else have I got? Oh, there's a guy named Wally Gibbons that lives in my valley that's an amp genius. He literally was a rocket scientist, you know, but his passion was tube amps. And so he's built an amp that I think we're going to end up marketing that's kind of a signature amp for me. It's really like the perfect 40-watt deluxe reverb is really what it is. You know, I mean, without a master volume or anything, it has like volume, treble, mid, bass, and then some voicing things, kind of like my Dumble has, and then that's it. And it's just.
That reminds me, there's a guy, kind of a similar up-and-comer that I think his father worked for NASA, and he's kind of like a genius. He's a jazz pianist, but he's choosing wisely to go into another career path. And he built I haven't purchased it yet because I just don't have the cash. But he put a full twin reverb. It's this kid, Thomas Jackson, so I'll give a shout out to Thomas Jackson. And he put a full twin reverb into a Princeton reverb chassis and cabinet. He calls it the Prince Twin. So it's 4 6Ls, 112, and I took it. We did some gigs in Ohio. I played at the Bop Stop and used it, and man, it was an unbelievable sounding amp. But it's 85 watts or whatever the twin is, and a Princeton reverb cab, 112.
Nice.
And he said he basically had to put everything in a certain place just to fit. But man, it's really cool.
I think they made those in the 70s. It was called the Mesa Boogie Mark I.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's even smaller now. It's like this tiny ass thing. Yeah.
That's awesome. Oh, hey, I just saw that Alfredo said, yeah, that's why it's still on your board. Oh, Alfredo. Guess what that is, Alfredo? That's a 1969 Vox Wah original.
Wow.
But actually,
pretty cool.
MXR Wah that he sold me is killer. That's a great pedal. If I didn't have the real deal, it would still be on my board.
Oh, I have a question for both of you. Elvis from Dominican Republic, he says, when are you going to Dominican Republic?
I don't know, man. You got to ask Javier.
We've been talking about it for years.
For 8 years we've been talking about it. I think it was going to happen this year, though, and then, you know, Rona. We got Rona'd.
Yeah, that's what it was. Let's say that. So, Sean, there's one for you. How was your experience of playing with the Herman of Note without having an actual director in front of you? I think it was the tenor guy cueing.
Oh, okay. You mean like a conductor, I guess, guy?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know if I've ever really played in a big band for any period of time that had a director. Or someone that was up. Like I've done like a bunch of records with Alan Baylock, and that was the closest thing to a director. But Alan was pretty hands off. I mean, he was up in front, but it wasn't like a Maria Schneider situation. Like she's very like animated and very much like pulling stuff out of people. Yeah, I mean, my experience was good. I mean, I don't want to say we didn't need a director because there were probably some situations where we did, but overall, yeah. Hard to say just because I haven't done a lot of stuff. We're supposed to do a concert with Maria Schneider in April, so maybe I'll answer that question better. I'll have to come back and after that experience. But yeah, so I'd say it's cool. Like I know the Army Band has a director in front of them. I don't know. I'm just struggling to play the notes, you know.
For my music so far, maybe the next album will be simpler in a way, so I can actually play more.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't try playing anything with my music so far. Because I
even think about that writing. Like we wrote Darden. We got Rona. Darden was supposed to do a Peggy Lee tribute with the Met Jazz with Jim Carroll big band, and I had started writing charts for that. And it got canceled about 2 or 3 charts into it. But I was going to be on tour with the Navy, so I was like, man, I really got to write these charts so that if I'm not there, you just count it off and it should play itself. So I don't know. I don't know how you feel. I mean, you've done much more of that kind of writing, Socrates, than me, but I try to write stuff that you don't need to be up in front of the band just because you don't have that luxury.
Well, for me, I'm thinking about it now more like, because I'm going to play more on the next album.
Right.
And I said, I can't play on this one for sure. I mean, because I have to be in front of the band all the time.
Sure.
Otherwise, there's a train wreck. There will be a train wreck for sure. And maybe I'll do that more, maybe simpler music, not dub music, because I don't like that.
Right.
But simpler, where at least we can count it off and just play.
Sure. I will say with the Commodores and the Note, like we rehearse so much, so it's like we're getting paid full-time salaries from the taxpayer. Thank you, taxpayer. So if we don't have a gig for a week or two, it's not like I get to just sit at home and then come to the gig. We rehearse a lot. Maybe sometimes too much because we just kind of get comfortable with being able to rehearse so much. So I don't even know if we'd need a director because by the time we play a concert, we've played a chart dozens of times or for several weeks at least.
That's an awesome luxury, isn't it?
It is cool. Yeah, it's cool. If I wasn't a guitar player, it would be awesome. But I'm still a guitar player in the big band, so I'm just like, I could get to play the C6 chord again for 100 measures. Can I go home now? But yeah, but it's cool because you can write complex stuff and then kind of step aside because the band plays it so much. So it is a nice luxury. I mean, I guess we're probably the only faction of big bands left in the world that is just a year-round rehearsing and playing gigs.
And it's a great band.
It's a great band. Yeah, I mean the musicians are unbelievable, and each person we seem to replace with someone just slightly better. And there's nowhere to do that anymore. So cats that want to do that just come out of the woodwork when there's auditions. But yeah, so the director thing, we could benefit sometimes for having someone in front of us, but I don't really miss it.
Corey, what about you? I mean, you're playing with small ensembles usually, but you've played with The Surge.
Yeah, man.
Wow.
That's a serious band. Chuck Owens' writing is, I think, some of the best big band writing, on the planet right now.
Heavy.
So heavy and so unique, Mm-hmm. So that's cool. And, Chuck's writing is so fun as a guitar player because lately, the last couple of albums, he's put guitar way up front in the list of priorities than piano. And
yes, you. So
yeah, and another guitar player who's totally brilliant, Lou Nicholson. I mean, he's a bad dude. And yeah, he puts us. And LaRue gets to do all of the electric, jazz guitar stuff, and then Chuck has me to come in and do like the steel string, the 12-string, the resonator guitar, play slide. It's so awesome. I mean, it's a big band writer that writes for slide guitar. I mean, and not just writes for slide guitar, but is like, this is going to be the sound of this tune. Like it's really, and it's not the sound of the tune, but it's just so, it's just such a dominant voice in his writing, the way he's used guitar.
That's cool.
And, I've known Chuck for 23 years, and he just keeps getting better and better at writing for guitar. He's not a guitarist, but he's honest. It's awesome because he has really put effort into writing guitar parts, and has always had questions for us, like, well, what can we do? And there's sometimes like, man, when he did the River Runs project, which is a 5-movement, basically concerto for jazz guitar and saxophone, and you perform it with a big band, and 80-piece orchestra. You know, I mean, it's an epic undertaking. And I think when I played, you know, the Cincinnati Conservatory hired me to come play all 5 movements with their big band.
Nice.
And it was, I think, one of 2 times maybe that the whole thing, like all 5 movements have been played. And it, you know, it was just epic. But there were times where I was like, Chuck, I'm not sure we could do this on the guitar. And he's like, well, you're going to have to if you're in my band. You know, I mean, it was one of those kind of things, and not really. I'm exaggerating because Chuck has been really great when I'm like, hey, Chuck, I'm not sure that this can happen. But more often than not, what I have found out that it's like, oh, this can happen. And this is pushing me so hard. You know, it's like the story, you know, like when Stravinsky wrote The Rite of Spring, you know, you know, that opening motif that's on the bassoon. Like the bassoonist was like, you can't do this on the bassoon. And he's like, you have to do it on the bassoon. Like, I need that timbre and that sound, and it's in a register that, yes, you might need medical assistance after you do this, but you have, like, it has to be done. And so there have been a few tunes that I've done with Chuck where I'm like, oh my gosh, this is kicking my butt so hard. And it's not like it's a fast technical thing. It's like more of a concept kind of thing. So working with Chuck has been one of the great pleasures of my life, you know, really. I mean, it really has. And it's just such a sick band. I mean, he hires all the, like, you know, like the last album we did, you know, the guest artists were me and Sarah Caswell.
Yeah.
And, Randy Brecker, and man, this guy, Gregoire Moreau, the harmonica player.
Amazing.
Like, such a brilliant musician, you know, Gregoire. I mean, he just, oh my gosh, he sounds incredible on that.
You know, if you don't know these guys, check him out. Check out that album. You know, or check out Sarah. I mean, she's a violin player and she's incredible.
Sarah is like, she's just the best. I mean, first of all, she's like the best human ever.
Oh yeah.
She's just so cool.
Super nice.
And then she just plays like, she's just got her own thing, you know, and it's so rooted in bebop because she studied with David Baker, you know, at Indiana. And so it's like, there are just no chinks in her armor, man. I mean, like, she's just like fully loaded for every situation. I mean, she's just super bad. So yeah, like being in a band with those guys, and Clay plays, you know, like trumpet, and Danny Gottlieb on drums. I mean, oh my gosh, it's just a treat to get to play. And I just hope Chuck never really finds out that there's a lot better guitar players that he could hire.
You know, with Clay, I love Clay. I mean, playing with him in my band too is amazing. But it's more like himself. I mean, his playing is great, of course, but himself, he puts you at another level as a person.
Clay is a genius in the sense of he, you know, is like for trumpet, like he just takes everybody with him and just says, you're going to be better.
Yep.
Like when you play with Clay, even in the context of 18 other people or 20 other people or whatever it is, he just makes you better. You know, you just, like, his skill set is so deep and so refined that he just makes everybody better. You know, it's just awesome.
That is true. You know, and you mentioned something that you know, that both of you have, and you know, that's one of the things I admire in people in general is being a nice human being. There are a lot of assholes in our business, and we know it. We know some of them also, but you know, just when we go to Jen, for example, and we hang out for 4 hours after the shows, and it's fun. It's a fun thing to do. It's not like a chore to do.
When I go to Jen, I leave bail money in cash with my wife. You know, I think whatever might happen, this will get me out. So you just have to be ready for the call.
Well, you know, I've known you for so many years now, both of you. I met Sean when 2006 or something.
2000, yeah, 2005, something like that.
Yeah.
In Nashville, yeah.
Yeah, in Nashville, and then Corey, like 10 years with you too. Yeah. And it's always a pleasure being around you guys. Huh?
I said it feels like 11.
10 and a half.
Yeah, maybe 12 with the wind chill.
Okay, I have one question though before we say whatever we have to say next. Advice from Alfredo, actually. Advice to younger students who are getting into improvisation and jazz vocabulary. Frustrations, inner demons. I like inner demons.
Ooh. Improvisation and jazz vocabulary. I'm always like sticking with the transcription end of things and just listening. And being happy, like, or kind of like enjoying the journey. Like I remember someone saying, just enjoy the journey. I've run into students in the past that, you know, you're working on some tune that's maybe they look at it as kind of a dumb tune or kind of one of these tunes that gets played 1,000 times. And I remember teaching at U of I, and I was showing some kid, we were playing like Satin Doll or something, and he's like, man, when are you going to show me like the cool stuff? And I'm like, man, this is the cool stuff. Like, if you can't do this, there's no cool stuff. You can't navigate these chains. Like, he wanted to just like dive in. He's like, yeah, I want to work on like countdown and like giant steps. And I'm like, well, like you don't even know like what scale works with like D minor 7. So let's start with that first. Let's walk and then run. So I'd say just like transcribing, enjoying the journey, listening. Transcribing stuff you love. Like I've had teachers, I'm sure Corey, you have, Socrates. You know, I tell my students, like, sometimes I might tell you to listen to something and transcribe it, and you don't really dig it. But then you get another record and you think like, man, I really dig this cat is speaking to me, but what you want me to transcribe isn't. And I'm like, man, just start transcribing that then. Like, go to initially what moves you as a musician. And I can just remember being a dumb college kid playing like I can't remember which record it was. It was maybe the Don't Try This at Home. Was that the first record that Joey Calderazzo was on with him?
Jack Stern's on it, and Jack.
Yeah, whatever record Calderazzo was on, we just listened to that record every night for like what seemed to be like the entire school year. And we were just floored with every single thing that they played. And so it was just, for me, like, how do I figure out what they play? Well, I got to listen to it, transcribe it. And then if I don't totally understand it, then I can go to like an older player or a professor and say, hey man, I figured this out, but I don't fully understand what is happening. So I think that for younger musicians, you go to college, your professor is more of a guide, and you just have to have that curiosity, find the thing that like really speaks to you, try to dissect that, and then when you can't really dissect it as well as you'd like, then you go to the professor and say, hey man, what's the deal with this? And then they can kind of guide you, and then maybe you find some other concept through that guidance. But yeah, transcription and listening, above all.
And yeah, I mean, Sean's right. I don't even need to say anything, but I will say just one or two things. It would be very unlike me to not say something. Okay, so first of all, I'm not going to throw anybody that might be watching under the bus, but like I always tell people, work on your time, because sometimes people think that they have their time together and maybe their time isn't together. And I happen to be a huge fan of the quarter note. Like, I'm rooting for it. Like, it might actually make a comeback, you know, like just go. And, for playing jazz music, or at least the kind of jazz music I like to play, because there's lots of different kinds of jazz at this point. But the kind of jazz music I like to play, that time thing is really important. But and just playing with good good drummers, and everybody can, man. You just get like whatever that app's called that I have on my phone, Drum Genius or something like Drum.
Yeah, pretty cool actually.
Yeah. Well, it's like, man, you want to play with Elvin Jones? Go play with Elvin Jones. You know, I mean, it's like, it's so cool. Yeah. So yeah, I just saw your comment there, Al. Yeah, but like I was right, wasn't I? And now you're killing. Now you sound so good. I'm so proud of Alfredo. I got to tell you, man, Alfredo's like playing his butt off.
He's doing great work, man.
His butt off, you know. And I don't know how he's even walking to the car because he doesn't have a butt anymore. There's nothing attaching his legs to the rest of his body. Okay. Anyway, what I was going to say is that, like, I have this kind of hierarchy of things that I think about, you know, and that I want, you know, it's like students to think about, and it's what's most important about the music, right? And so for me, the most important thing at the beginning is it's your sound. It's never too early to start thinking about what you want your sound to be like, you know? And you're going to get a good sound if you steal the things you like about other people's sound. Like if you steal, you know, if you steal like 5 or 6 guys' things that you're like, oh man, I love the attack of Grant Green, but I like the EQ of you know, this other player. And I like the reverb of Bill, you know, like, I don't know, think about like, what would be you? Because your sound, maybe this is why I don't get too attached to the gear. Because like, unfortunately, everything I buy sounds like me, you know, like if I could find a guitar that didn't sound like me, I would buy it. Now, and that's a quote from Bruce Forman, actually. I got to give Bruce Forman credit for that one. But it's true. If I, you know, like, it doesn't matter. I play the Telly on the Wall, kind of sounds like me. You know, I play, you know, Hullaby sound, kind of sound a little different, right? But it sounds like me. I happen to love to play the Benedetto guitars because they are the closest thing right now I've got to what I have in my head, you know? But at the end of the day, so sound is huge. And then for me, it's time. It's that, like, how can I put my sound in the context of time? And then, you know, time and rhythm. And then the third thing for me is understanding the form of the music that you're going to play. And then the last thing is like the melodic and the harmonic concepts. Because if you don't understand the form, it doesn't matter how many melodic and harmonic concepts you know, you're going to put them in the wrong place. Yeah. And so, like, for me, that's the hierarchy. Sound, time, form, and then all this stuff you learn in school, which is weird, right? Because if you think about what we focus on in school most of the time, is like we focus on melody and harmony and form and then time and then like sound maybe a little bit in your private lesson, but probably not that much, to be honest, right? And it's just weird because I think we teach those things the most because they're the easiest to teach. Mm-hmm. But I am making it a real point, you know, like if there's any kind of legacy that I want to leave behind, it's like, look, a big part of the jazz language is your sound. Sure. And a big part of the jazz language is how you feel time and how you organize time. And then, like, buy a book. There's 1,000 of them that will tell you the other stuff.
You have like 70 of them.
I wrote.
And I think I own a few of those. Yeah. Corey, I still have your. I remember watching. It was like the 1, 2, 3, 4 DVD. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4, 3, 1, 2, and I was sitting there like.
The picking technique. Yeah. Yeah.
You seemed younger then.
Yeah, I was younger. I was lighter.
That's for sure. Well, you know, I remember I had the Grant Green one from you.
Yeah. Oh, you do have the Grant Green? Yeah. Well, yeah, man. It's like, yeah, it's, you know.
He's a cat that I was telling students, you know, I found Grant Green in New York at Tower Records. Not actual Grant Green, but like his records. And as an undergrad, he was like I don't know if cats just like slept on him when I was growing up in Pittsburgh, but it's like I didn't hear of. I didn't even know that name till I was like 22 or 23. But man, to me, he's like perhaps just like talking about time. Oh, yeah. You know, even his sound. Like I know some cats will maybe not think of him as like necessarily like the guy to go for tone, but like just his swing feel and his language, it's like he's got it all to me. Like he was a cat. When I found him, it was like, wow, this is the guy.
I didn't know about him until you actually introduced him. It was like, 2006. You told me, check out this guy. And I was like, who's that guy? Grant Green. Yeah. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, and even a sound like the 330 with the P90s, it's like kind of, it can be a little nasally, but man, I dig it. And it's like, my thing with the students is like, you put on a Grant Green record and within, he strikes one note and you know that it's Grant Green. Yep. Like one note. And, even like my favorites, like Pat Martino is another hero of mine. He had so many different eras and so many different things happening that it's like there's 60s Pat and then there's like this Pat and like this, the sound is similar, but there are some differences where you maybe don't latch on to that it's Pat right away. But Grant Green is like one of those cats where as soon as I hear him, I know that it's him.
Yeah. Well, Corey has a lot of books on licks and transcriptions and all that stuff from guitarists. If you don't know it, go to Mel Bay and he has a bunch of them. Now, you also have the online thing happening, Corey, right?
I have the what happening?
Online kind of thing?
Online, yes, yeah. Musiclessons.com. I've got a lot of maybe 7 hours or 8 hours worth of video content and lessons up on musiclessons.com. And then I'm doing a jazz chord substitution class at jazzanywhere.com. And those are held live on Tuesday nights, but you can go and watch the videos anytime you want. I record them and then post them. So if you buy the course, you can watch them and get caught up. That's been a blast. I have about 50 students doing that one.
Wow.
And we have a great time on Tuesdays. It's a ton of fun. Next week, we're talking about, this week we talked about diminished connections, like with dominant chords. And so now we're going to start exploring every one of those, like, minor third substitutions and like 2-5-1. I don't know.
Nice.
Like, line stuff. And then I have another company that I work with that is, we kind of build a music curriculum around a fully online accredited high school so that people can go there and get high school credit for taking private lessons. And we have about 27 courses available. John Riley did our drum curriculum. Some great players. We've got guitar, bass, drums, and they're not necessarily jazz. I mean, it's just, like for high school students. So it's all kinds of stuff. But piano, ukulele, that's going to be the big one.
Big seller.
Yeah, for sure.
Will help me retire. Then there's I don't know, man. There's a saxophone, trombone, trumpet. It's insane. It's an epic undertaking to build and to have a high school accredited, and then to do a music curriculum for it. So
that's pretty cool, actually.
That's called Educational Advantage, and it's just an awesome company.
Huh. That's pretty cool. Well, guys, I know both of you are always so busy, and every time I talk to you, it's the same. It's like doing 100 different things, and it's great. It's great to to be your friend first, and since I admire both of you a lot, it's even greater.
Thanks, Sox.
About you, Sox.
No, it's funny how people you admire and they're friends, and then you can see it from another perspective, I think.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I don't think we have. You have a Japanese version of the Wes Montgomery. It's Japanese version.
Yes. Oh, most of my books were translated into Japanese. I have a Japanese publisher through Mel Bay called ATN. And so everything's in, I think probably 90% of my books are also in Japanese.
Okay, cool. Well, guys,
I love the Japanese editions. They use such good paper. Their papers, it's amazing. I mean, now I could get into all the stuff I love about print music, you know, that you don't get online. And one of the things is like the Japanese, they're really good at printing. They've been doing it longer than just about anybody. Right. And so like, oh, the paper quality is great. The ink is great. Oh, it's Japanese.
Pretty cool. Well, we have one last question for you guys before we say bye. Sean, for you, how many pedals do you have?
Oh, that's my good friend Dave Perkel. I think I topped out at 51. I'm sad to say.
That's awesome.
But you know, I told Darden, I said if I go any day now, like she's got the funerals covered with those pedals.
Yeah,
you know,
easily.
That's my excuse with my wife. It's like something happens to me. You have all this stuff that you can.
Awesome.
I'm a bona fide pedal addict. I will say I used like 3 of them. I used like a reverb pedal, some overdrive, and then like another reverb pedal. But I got like 8 fuzzes, Octavia clone. They're all in my closet.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, guys, I have one more. Spanish editions for your books, Corey.
You know, I'm not sure if there are Spanish. I think there are Spanish editions for some of them, but I'm not sure which ones, to be honest. I kind of let the publisher deal with that. But you could easily look all that up at melbay.com, and they would be able to tell you.
Cool. Well, guys, you know, for these 2 guys, if you don't know their music, please check them out because they are both amazing. Both of their latest albums are amazing, so check them out. And books, well, I already said it. Corey has like 97, says Alfredo says. And Sean, I still have a lot of your materials that you gave me when I was your student.
Oh, awesome.
At MTSU. I still have some of those here.
One of these days, I'll put my foot in that pool as well, hopefully.
You should. You should, because you have a lot of great stuff.
I have a lot of stuff. It's just, collating that and just getting it together. I got my dissertation, so I'll put that as one book. I have one book out there.
That counts.
Yeah. It's like one big, long, incredibly boring book, but it's...
Well, you know...
But it's on Peter Bernstein, who I love. Like, I just love to pieces. So it was a real pleasure to do that.
It's fun because, you know, when I got my dissertation, it's like this thick. I have a big book.
Yeah. With Peter, I could have probably done like 10 books just on Pete.
Oh, yeah.
Like each concept that
Easy. Yeah.
Well, guys, thanks for everything. Huh, Corey?
Socrates, this has been a lot of fun. It's good to see you, Sean.
Yeah, you too, Corey. Thanks, Socrates. This is awesome.
Guys, thanks for being with us today. And this will be on YouTube. So if anybody can, you know, you won't have the questions, but please check it out. Check out also the other ones I have there with Frank and Bali, Alex Makachek, all those guys. Tim Miller. No, not Tim Miller. Tim is not on the website, on the YouTube, but we had it with him 2 weeks ago. Guys, thank you. It's a pleasure talking to you and, you know, being your friend.
Thanks, Socrates. I appreciate it.
Well, guys, thanks for being with us tonight. And hope you can check out these interviews, like I said. Hope to see you soon again. See you Thursday with another Spanish one. Take care, guys. Sean, take care, man.
Thanks, Socrates. Yeah, man.